Hi all, Mr. Yeager. This particular section we're looking at color. Okay, looking at color, and I have the old-fashioned spelling, the British spelling of Colurs. You don't have to use that, obviously. You're going to see me mix back and forth. But we're looking at what creates color. There's basically two situations. We have what's called an additive effect with color and a subtractive effect. And so we're going to look at both. So how do we basically create colors? So we talked about how light shines down on an object and we see what is reflected. We see what is reflected. So how do we see the different colors then? That basically means we're seeing reflected, that color reflected light. But the thing is, what's all around us, the sun and obviously most incandescent lights and stuff like that, is what we call white light. And white light is all the different colors put together, essentially. All right. I usually like to draw it out where basically I'm saying white light is you got the red, the orange, all these wavelengths of light as we learned about. Okay. With red being the longest, and as we get farther, smaller and smaller frequencies. Okay. But all these different colors of light mixed together is actually creating white light. Okay, so when you see the color white, you have every single one of those colors reflecting back at you. All right. Again, it's like one of those things I was thinking about. It's like it would be super strange if you could actually see all of these different colors of light all the time. But since they come so quickly at you and they're so close together, your eyes don't really discern the difference between them, and therefore we have all these basically different colors of light coming from white light. Okay, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. So what happens here is that we have three primary colors, which you probably have learned before: red, blue, and green. Okay, there's three primary colors of light: red, blue, and green. All right, and so what happens is we basically create this color wheel, and I would definitely copy down the color wheel because it's one of those things that I'll admit I get all messed up and confused which one's doing what. So the color wheel is a very important thing to understand and be able to use, and even if I don't give it to you, it might be something you draw on your test. So if I draw those three colors basically as big circles, those are my three primaries, I obviously get points where they overlap. Okay? And basically what I'm trying to say is when certain areas overlap, they form these other colors. So blue and red make magenta, which yes is basically purple. Okay? Red and blue light together create purple or magenta. Okay? Magenta is the more physics-oriented name for purple. Okay, for whatever reason. All right. When blue and green come together, they form the color cyan. Okay, light blue or cyan. Sorry, that thing's in the way. All right, I'll get it out of the way for a second. But blue and green make cyan, and then red and green. Again, this is light. Okay, light. I'm not talking about pigments or crayons or anything like that. But when I shine red and green light together, it'll create a yellow color. Well, then if I put all of those together, okay, if I have red, green, and blue all together, it'll create white light. All right. And so what you're going to see here is obviously there's all sorts of combinations we can do here. It'll obviously have questions of what do you create when you have red and blue, magenta? But what do you create when you have red and cyan? Okay, red and cyan. What would that create, et cetera, et cetera? And the answer to that is going to actually make white light. All right. So we're gonna have to figure out all the complementary colors. What colors would you see reflected? Okay. And again, this is physical light being produced. I'm not referring to pigments or crayons or anything else like that. That's going to be a little bit different of a color wheel that you have to look at. This is adding colors. So this is the idea of how TVs create every single color, is they basically only have more latest TVs are a little bit more fancy, but old-time TVs basically had three diodes of red, blue, and green, and every single color could be created on that TV. All right? So your primary colors, red, blue, and green, again, to combine all those, create white. Your secondary colors will be yellow, cyan, and magenta. Okay? Where the secondary colors are made up of obviously two primary colors. Okay? made up of two primary colors. So, as I said, we have a couple tricks that you're going to be probably asked. If you add a primary color with a secondary color, all right, the opposite with the secondary color opposite it in the color wheel. This is why the color wheel is very useful. They're going to create white light. So, like I said before, if I use red and opposite to it is cyan, it will create the white light, because the idea is red is one color, cyan is made up of blue and green, so therefore blue, green, and red make up white. Blue with yellow will create white, and obviously green and magenta. So using that color wheel is very, very useful. And again, I strongly encourage that you would draw it out on a test if it's not specifically given to you, which I don't think it will be, that you can use that to be prepared for answering these types of questions. Okay. Now, again, how do we then end up seeing color? Okay, again, the color will depend on the color of light that it reflects. So we just got some simple examples here. Okay, if I have a red book, what happens is, and I'll shine white light down on it. You can see all my colors, Roy G. Biv. What happens is that red book is only reflecting the red color. Okay. And so again, that would be other questions we ask. Why do you only see the red color of the book? That's the only color being reflected. All right. If there's purple trousers or magenta, and I shine white light down, yes, it is sending back the purple color, which is also sending back basically red and blue colors, because again, red and blue make purple. Again, there is a purple frequency, so it is reflecting the purple as well, but the idea is that would also reflect red and blue. White hat reflects everything. Okay, all the colors coming back to you. So I understand maybe already confusion where you're going, wait a minute, should I only pay attention to red, blue, and green? Or should I look at purple, etc.? White light is made up of Roy G. Biv, all the colors. But it's the combination of the primary colors that also helps create this additional color that we see. So the purple color that we see is a combination of red, blue, and purple all together. Okay, you don't see the red and blue because they're mixing and creating magenta / purple, but it also has the purple light as well. What if, and then we know this because what if we use only colored lights? So now, instead of shining white light down onto it, what if we only send down red light or blue light or green light, etc.? What would we see? Okay, so we have an example here where it says this is a football kit, sure, okay, where it's clearly meant like the object itself is supposed to be red and blue. Basically, that's what it looks like under white light. Let's make that clear. Okay, that's what it looks like under white light. Okay, the shirt is reflecting the red, the shorts are reflecting the blue. Okay, but what happens if I shine this under a different color light? So what if I just shine it under red? Well, the red shirt will still reflect red. We'll still see that. All right, and it will appear red. But the thing is, the blue, there's nothing to reflect. There's no blue color to reflect. So how will that appear? Well, what does the blue do? It'll actually absorb the red. This is where we get into absorption, all right? And it'll appear black. So under red light, instead of having what appears to be red and blue shorts, that person will appear to have red and black shorts on. Are his shorts actually black? Not necessarily. Again, no under white light, but under this red light, yes, they are. They appear to people as black. So again, it's how we perceive the reflected light of what color we obviously see. If we shine blue light down on the uniform, the shorts will appear blue, but the shirt will appear now black. Okay? So it all depends on the color that is being reflected back. All right? We also could possibly use filters. Okay? Basically, a red filter is exactly what it sounds like. Basically, it's going to only allow red through. Okay, it actually filters red through. So filter means let through. Everything else gets blocked. Okay. All right. So that's color addition or additive effects of color. What we now are going to look at is what's called color subtraction. All right. So again, what we're looking at is the objects themselves. All right. they don't necessarily have a color themselves. It's the color that ends up being reflected back that we see. All right, which is kind of weird. It's again the odd idea where it's because of the pigments inside of it is what we're seeing the color being reflected back out. All right, so we have what are these called pigments, and pigments are any chemical that basically absorb certain frequencies of color. So the chemicals themselves are actually pulling in colors that we don't see. Okay, they absorb the colors and frequencies of light to then reflect. They'll let back out anything that's not being pulled in. Okay, is what we're looking at here. So this one picture is basically we have three protractors here. All right, we have a cyan, yellow, and magenta protractor. Sorry. And the idea is, again, each one is reflecting only certain frequencies of light. It's absorbing certain colors and reflecting back the others. So how can we try to figure these out? Well, the nice thing is we basically have another color wheel, which is just the opposite of the one we created. All right, just the opposite of the one we created. So now what we have is we have a color wheel where it's cyan, yellow, and magenta as the large ones, and red, green, and blue on the inside. And the idea is since we are subtracting color, when all these are added together, we get a black color. Okay. So again, cyan, magenta, and yellow are all secondary pigments. They're only going to absorb one frequency of light. All right. And sorry. Yeah. Let me go back real fast. They only absorb one frequency of light and then reflect two others. Okay. So we have what are called. Give me a second. I apologize. Okay. The blue, red, and green primary pigments, they're still called the primary pigments, are going to absorb two frequencies of light. So what we're saying is something that is red is absorbing green and blue, and therefore it produces a red color. It basically releases that red light. Okay, while something that is blue is going to absorb green and red and reflect blue. Okay, so it's what it's absorbing that we don't see. It's what it's reflecting that we do see. Cyan, magenta, and yellow are our secondary pigments. They absorb only one frequency of light. And again, it's going to be the opposite one on the other side of the color circle. Okay, so again, complementary colors, if they absorb each other, basically are going to end up being black if you combine the two together. So again, cyan absorbs red, yellow absorbs blue, magenta absorbs green. The opposite color, as we already talked about, they're the same complementary colors. They're going to absorb the opposite color. So green technically absorbs magenta, okay, which is, again, like we said, magenta is made up of blue and red. If you notice, the cyan, yellow, and magenta, excuse me, are the colors of color printer cartridges. Okay, because if you have these three colors, you can make any color. All right, so how can this work? If white light shines on the following, what color or colors are you going to see? What's going to be absorbed? So if you shine white light, so all colors on magenta, what's happening is, if we use the color wheel, we're going to see red and blue. Okay, we see red and blue. Let me go ahead and draw it out so we can kind of, again, understand where we're using this color wheel thing. Okay. So if I shoot out a color wheel for you real fast. Okay. So let's say cyan, yellow, and magenta. This is blue and red. Sorry for not making this that much larger. This would be, and then this would be green, and this would be black. Okay, I'm just going to just erase it out and make it black. Alright, so sorry, it's a little bit tough to see, but we'll deal with it. So the idea is, if I have magenta down here, I'm looking at magenta. As we just saw in the prior slide, it absorbs its complementary color. So it's absorbing green, but magenta is red and blue basically combined from light. So red and blue would be reflected, green would be absorbed. Okay, green would be absorbed. You could also technically say, I guess, purple gets reflected too. But that one, that's usually not the question at hand. They usually skip that. What would red be? What would red do? Red is on the inside. So what red's going to do is it basically absorbs cyan, which is blue and green, and only reflect red. So red is seen, but cyan or green and blue is absorbed. If I have yellow, yellow is absorbing blue and then reflecting green and red, and again, technically yellow. Okay? If again, you're talking about white light. All right? So again, it's always the opposite that gets absorbed, and what's next to it is what's being reflected. Again, is it a primary pigment, which is on the inside, or a secondary pigment, which is again made up of multiple colors. All right? We can also still make it tough too and say, okay, instead of white light, what if blue light shines on it? All right, what would you see? So let's try this. So now only blue light's coming in. So cyan. So cyan is going to reflect blue and green. But the thing is, what's the only type of light that's being shown on it? It's blue, so cyan's going to look blue. Green, what would green look like? Well, green's on the inside and it's absorbing blue and red. It absorbs blue, which means it's going to appear black. Yellow, over here, absorbs blue, reflects green and red, but there's no green and red, so yellow is also going to appear black. So those are basically examples of color problems. That color wheel is vital, vital, vital to avoid confusion, and you'll just have to practice from there. Thanks.